Okay, we're moving into what should be the last video for this particular section of society and victim connection. And here's the review of where we were last time. Remember, I said that there are four factors to victimization. This is the one thing that I say that I basically, instead of showing you multiple theories and ideas, basically went through and decided these are the top four things that factor into victimization based on all those, and kind of said, hey, I'm going to come up with an easier, simpler way to remembering these things. So the age, sex, aptitude, and precipitation is the acronym, ASAP. Hopefully that will help you remember victimization. So yeah, once again, age, like I said earlier in previous videos, that younger individuals, they may be, victims of child molestation or other offenses, child abuse, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, whatever. And then you have some of the elderly that can't take care of themselves. Also, the weaker, in terms of they are weaker as far as age is concerned, so therefore they are easier prey for those who are wanting to take advantage of someone else. Also, sex. We talked about which sex is more likely to be victimized based on the crime. Also, something else I want to point out about age, I forgot to mention that, is that it also depends on the crime itself that's being committed. So, for example, any sex crimes or anything along those lines, yes, you do have victims that are going to be younger, and some that are older. In fact, a lot of we'll talk about this if I think about it when we talk about the different types of rapists later on that we'll talk about in this class. There is an area that we deal with in terms of, like, say, middle-aged women. But as far as, say, rape is concerned, for the way most people view it, the most vulnerable age group is going to be your, in essence, high school through college age group. So to be an adult would be 18 up through about early to mid 20s. So anyway, going back to that, aptitude, mental, physical ability, precipitation, already discussed that also. So either way, ASAP. Okay, something else, thing called victim lifestyle exposure. Basically, it's saying the more you're around different harmful elements or people, then the more likely you are to become a victim. So as it states here, frequency of potentially harmful elements experienced by the victim and resulting from the victim's usual environment, personal traits, and past choices put them in contact with crime and criminals. So some examples on here that I listed would be, there'd be a woman who is living with their drug dealing boyfriend. She's around illegal activities. She's around in essence, an environment to where there's a higher likelihood of something going wrong, not just drug use, but also everything that goes with it in terms of the dangers of money, the dangers of drug deals going wrong, or people in altered states and all that kind of stuff. So you have that, the business side of it, which can be just as dangerous, and also we'll get to the second example here, which is working night shift or getting off work during those hours. Individuals who tend to work night shifts, or especially if they're coming off of work in those late hours, are more likely to be victims of whether it be sex crimes by a stranger or robbery. That's another one that's a higher likelihood. It also depends on the age of the offender. But either way, those are some examples there. Also, different activities such as actually the lifestyle choices, such as if you like to party a lot, that makes a difference. You're more likely to be a victim. If you happen to be, based on your sexual orientation actually is shown to change the likelihood of victimization. There's a higher victimization for those who are in same-sex relationships. um, because you end up getting a lot of, for instance, there are uh, a high number of situations where, especially male same-sex domestic violence cases, you have some of those. Um, Also, just simply by the nature of many of the same activities that go along with that lifestyle, tend to put you in more dangerous situations. So, just thought I'd throw that out there. And trying to think anything else, but as long as those are two big examples you can look at as far as your lifestyle choices, who you're around, um, and obviously some kids can't control. For instance, if their parent is part of the problem, they can't really control that a whole lot. Hopefully, someone reports the issue to the Department of Children's Services or Department of Family and Children's Services, depending on where you live. All right, so now moving on from victims, because I think that's pretty self-explanatory. If any of you have questions about that, feel free to ask. And once again, remind you about the virtual office hours. I'll help you with that during that time frame, as well as if you email me questions, I'll do my best to help explain something that we've talked about during these lectures um, to get greater explanation than what I can here. All right, so role of location. People don't really think about this a whole lot, and I know I've alluded to it during other um, lectures, even before midterm. I know we talked about it in classroom. Said that different places are more likely to be crime-ridden, in essence. So higher crime rates occur near high schools, also college and universities, bars, liquor stores, abandoned buildings, and city centers and downtown. So high schools, it could be drug dealers around there. Colleges, we talked about sexual assaults. And part of that is the age thing. Part of it is the lifestyle people choose to live. Part of it's the sheer number of people in that small area, as well as judgment and decision making at that point. You may think that you know what you're doing, but there are a lot of people out there that don't, and the brain is not fully developed at this point in time. So the ability to make rational, uh, good, wise choices, that's lacking in some people. So that's part of it. Bars obviously add in an issue of, um, first of all, alcohol or anything else, other substances that may be there, confined spaces, and sexual competition. All that is not a good thing when you mix it all together. So, liquor stores don't need to go in that. Abandoned buildings, great place to do drugs, great place to deal drugs, do other illegal activity. In fact, yeah, I mean, that's uh, whether it be abandoned buildings or homes, trailers, things like that. Those where you can find some, you'll end up finding, for lack of better terms, crack houses, even though we don't really have a whole lot of those in this part of the country. You will find those in some of your cities. So, and out in the country, they just find trailers and other places like that. So, um, okay, city centers downtown. When you have people living closer together, usually city centers tend to have, or at least the downtown areas I'm talking about, have lower incomes. That factors into the stress also, but simply being on top of one another in such a densely populated area creates stress and leads to higher crime rates. So, we already talked about why some of this is, higher crime prone age groups, poor judgment capabilities, social controls not there, uh, and in open and unsecured locations or locales. And also, some things that we can do to prevent some of this crime would be what's called crime prevention through environmental design. These are things like you'll see programs where they will change the architecture of the area of a business to help guide people uh, to eliminate, movement into areas that people aren't supposed to be. In neighborhoods, especially rundown neighborhoods where you have an abandoned building, what they may do is tear that down, and it's green greenify it, if you want to call it that. Basically, they put plants. They get rid of that structure for people where they can gather, sell drugs, use drugs. Prostitution's another one. All sorts of illegal activities take place in those abandoned, rundown buildings. If you get rid of those and replace it with actual, say, like landscaping or something like that, or some type of simple park for little kids, that can actually help reduce crime in your area. Parking facilities, like adding lights, that helps. Convenience stores with cameras as well as better lighting. That's what we're talking about in terms of crime prevention through environmental design. So that's the end of this session or section on social and victim connection. If you have any other questions, please read through your information again, and also contact me via email or through my virtual office hour. Until later, be safe.